Hey everybody, this is the first video for Monday, January 4th. You guys should have also watched a video on talking about the country project. I may end up having this be a two-part video, so there may end up being a second part of it. There are also notes on LMS. Make sure you download those, write them in. If you don't have a printer or something, it's perfectly fine to get the notes and have it on your computer right there, and then just take a notebook and just be writing in the notebook each one that you see. The note should look like this. If I can bring it over, it should look like this. I have a small version here. Okay, so it should look like that. So this chapter is going to be definitely different than we have done in the past, because we have, with the other chapters, basically I took exactly what the textbook said and I added a little bit to it. This one will be a bit different because the way that Islam is treated in the world today is a bit different than we who are biblical Christians know the way it is. So we are not taking it from going to a Christian school, private Christian school. We are not taking it from a neutral, worldly perspective. We are going to look at it from a biblical perspective. Then there's also, we're talking about different Arab cultures and stuff like that, and that's fine, but we're going to be looking at the life of Muhammad and everything from a biblical perspective. And so we're going to see a lot of differences. This is one that you're going to see definite huge differences from anything that you may have read about if you happen to be from public school or different things like that. A lot of differences because we're going to be comparing it to the Bible and looking at it from a biblical perspective. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. So chapter 6, the world of Islam. The first thing we're going to talk about are Arab people, because Islam has arisen out of Arab people's culture. Muhammad was Arab, and so we're going to go way back in the past and talk about where the Arab people originated from. So Arab people originated on the Arabian Peninsula. Obviously you can tell by the name. If you're looking in your notes there, it says geography, peninsula name, Arabian Peninsula. The Arabian Peninsula, if you're looking here, it is kind of between Africa and Asia. It's kind of the bottom of the Middle East here. It's this green part. That's the Arabian Peninsula. It's surrounded on three sides by water. Most of the Arabian Peninsula is a huge desert called the Rub al Khali. It's a big desert, very, very dry. It's an example of what it looks like. Kind of looks like the Sahara, which we'll study next chapter, but it is very dry. It's 1.25 million square miles, so it's actually the largest peninsula in the world. That's the largest peninsula. And you guys, in other peninsulas you could look at, we've looked at the, right here is the Apennine Peninsula. At some point we're going to look at the Iberian Peninsula right here. We looked at the Balkan Peninsula right here. Asia Minor is a peninsula. Arabian Peninsula is bigger than all of them. Okay, it's huge. It's also the largest region without any river. Now, what do I mean by this? It is, obviously you could have a stream here and there, but without any major rivers. Like they don't have a Nile River, an Amazon River, Yangtze River. It's the largest area, and it does not have a river. As you can tell by that picture, there's not a lot of water. The only water can be found in small oases where water leaks up to the surface from underground springs. There is water underground, but not a lot at the surface, and that's what a typical oasis would look like in a desert. And you can see that there is water leaking up, so there's an underground spring underneath. Has some protection up here by the cliffs to the right. They kind of protect it a little bit from evaporation, allow a little bit of moisture to stay down there. And you can tell that there's water because there's stuff growing. If you're ever in a desert, you want to walk toward trees, right? Because the trees have to be getting the water from somewhere. So that's what an oasis in the Arabian Peninsula would look like. like kind of a nice place to swim, right? You can kind of tell if you look closely that it's kind of underwater caves down there. Probably goes deep, 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 like hundreds of feet deep, maybe. Who knows? All right, bodies of water. We have under climate, you're gonna put it's a desert climate, really, really dry, hardly any water at all. That's a climate of the Arabian Peninsula, hot as well. It's surrounded by the Red Sea on the west. That's right here. This long, long area is the Red Sea. That's where Moses and the children of Israel crossed over. Somewhere up here, I think, to the north of the Red Sea, the north part of the Red Sea. But this entire line is the Red Sea. It has the Persian Gulf on the east. This is the Persian Gulf right here. We also have the Gulf of Aden and the Gulf of Oman right here. But it's the Arabian Sea is like what we call this area that's touching the Arabian Peninsula. So we have the Red Sea, we have the Persian Gulf, we have the Arabian Sea, and then it opens up to the Indian Ocean. This is the Indian Ocean. Over here is the Atlantic. Over here is the Pacific. This is the Indian Ocean, this whole ocean here, and this section here is called the Arabian Sea. Again, Red Sea, Persian Gulf, Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean. And you can see it here on this map. This is a modern day map. This is not what it looked like back then, but as you see, this would be Egypt over here. This is the Sinai Peninsula, which belongs to Egypt at this point in time. This is Israel and Palestine right here. You have Lebanon up here, Syria right here, Jordan, Iraq, and Kuwait. You got Saudi Arabia. You got, I always say Qatar, but it's Qatar. United Arab Emirates. You got Oman and Yemen. These are very, have a lot of oil in them, very wealthy oil countries at the bottom here. But this is the modern day Arabian Peninsula. And it kind of stops right here. This is all desert. In the 90s, there was a big war from Saddam Hussein in Iraq, came down and tried to get oil from Kuwait. And we kind of went in there to help the Kuwaiti people because we did not like Saddam Hussein. But anyway, let's go back to geography. So modern countries, as I said, in modern day, most of the peninsula is the country of Saudi Arabia. They have sometimes been our enemy, sometimes been our friend. Depends what you're talking about. But also Yemen, Oman, and United Arab Emirates also have significant portions. The northern border is Iraq and Jordan. You can see that here. The northern border of the Arabian Peninsula is Iraq and Jordan. Most of it is Saudi Arabia. Oh, I could have just gotten that one. And this is what it looks like. I just threw some pictures in here. I've been trying to include more and more pictures of what the area looks like in my PowerPoint presentations. In this chapter, next chapter, I'm going to include a lot more pictures because I think that's important. So here's the Arabian Peninsula, a couple of oases, right? You can tell that there's water there because there's grasses built up. People, this is how big the oases are. These are people. This is an oasis here, and this is like a little town. And you can see all the desert all around it. Obviously, a town would want to form around an oasis. Again, more desert, lots and lots of desert as far as the eye can see. Little populations here, and car here. I mean, 4-wheel drive to go here. Oh, one of my kids is waking up from nap. But there's also on the coast, it is nice looking. I mean, who would not want a vacation there? It's not really a beach with sand. It's kind of rocky, but still the water looks beautiful. You know, not really a nice beach area. Can't really put your towel down anywhere, but it's definitely looks like a nice place to swim. Although this would be a little rough, but looks like a nice area. So let's talk about the origin of the Arab people. The Arab people trace their lineage back to Abraham, like Jewish people do. So we know that Jewish people, Hebrews, trace their lineage back to Abraham. So do Arab people. We talk about origins of Arabs. Should be. Oh, do I only have a little bit of a line there? Essentially, what I want you to know is they trace their lineage back to the Jews. I mean, back to Abraham. However, they trace it through Ishmael, not Isaac. If you remember in Genesis 16, Abraham had a child with Hagar. Remember, they went down to Egypt. He claimed that Sarai at that point in time was not his wife but his sister. The king said, all right, I'll take her from my wife then. God was going to kill him, and he gave her back to Abraham, or Abram at that time, and gave him a bunch of stuff. Well, in that stuff was included, most likely, Hagar, a maidservant, an Egyptian servant. So they had a servant, and they're waiting on God's promise that he would give them a child, because God promised them that he would give them a child, and this child would be who Abraham's lineage would be through. That's where Jesus would be, and that's going to be Isaac. But they got tired of waiting, and so Sarai had the idea, well, Abraham, why don't you just have a child with my servant, Hagar, the Egyptian Hagar, and we'll just raise that like our child. Maybe that's what God, maybe God needs some help. Maybe God needs an idea. So they did, and unfortunately, that wasn't God's plan. And you can see here in Genesis 17, God comes to him when Abram was 99 years old, and at this point in time, I think Isaac, I can't remember how old Isaac is at this point. Ishmael is at this point in time. But God basically comes to him, and Abram's been raising Ishmael for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that. He's like a kid, like that old. And maybe even like 11 or 12, something like that. And he comes to him, and Abram's been raising Ishmael as if he's the son of the promise that he's going to have children through. And God's like, nope, not him. I'm not going to have children. I'm not going to have your line be through him. And here in Genesis 17:11, Abram says, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. He's like, please, God, can you just use Ishmael? And so, but God says, no, because God's not going to change his plan based on what we want him to do. He's like, this was the plan the whole time. And just because you decided that you wanted to go and do something different doesn't mean I'm going to honor that. And so kind of stinks for Ishmael, but he's not the son of the promise. But he does say, as for Ishmael, I've heard you. Behold, I blessed him and will make him fruitful. That always means a lot of people will come from him, and multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes. I'll make him a great nation. So the Arab people come from Ishmael, but he's going to establish his covenant with Isaac. And so we fast forward to Genesis 21. Ishmael was really evidently maybe jealousy. I'm not sure why. He was picking on Isaac a lot, and Isaac was just a little kid. Ishmael was really giving him a hard time. Sarah was very upset about it, and she demanded that they just be cast out. And so Abraham and Sarah cast Hagar and Ishmael, and it's very sad, but they have to depart. And so God says to Abram, yeah, send them away, but don't worry, I'm going to make them a great nation as well. Because of you, I'm going to make them a great nation. You went against my plans, but still, I'm going to use it. And so they go, and they don't have an easy time of it. Ishmael and Hagar, they're actually dying of thirst at one point. Hagar at one point gives up and says, I have to move away from him because he's going to die of thirst any minute, and I don't want to see him die. I just can't do it. And God raises her head and helps her see a little, what does it say? A well of water. She found a well just in time. They got water from it, and so that was Ishmael. And the Arab people traced their lineage through Ishmael. So they say the Arab people and eventually Muslims, they say they trace their lineage through Abraham, and it's basically like they were cousins. Arabs are cousins of the Jewish people. But as you can understand, there sometimes is a lot of jealousy between Arab people and the Jewish people, because the Jewish people were chosen. And Abraham wanted to be the other way, but they were chosen, they were picked, and God wasn't going to change his plan. Ishmael was, as I mentioned, Abraham's legitimate son through Hagar. I discussed that. They wandered. They were forced to wander in the desert until they settled. They settled in the area in the western Arab Peninsula, so on this side, or whatever, on this side rather than this side, so near the Red Sea. And Ishmael married an Egyptian woman. His mom was Egyptian. He married an Egyptian woman, and he gave birth to the Arabian people. And so a lot of the problems in the Middle East, they stem from this butting of heads between them. I got to stop. I'm going to do a part 2, so keep a lookout for part 2. I'm running out of time. I have 5 seconds left. Bye.